Hi everyone, this is the excuse me, the midterm ones study guide overview, and I hope that this will help you um, as you prepare to take that this first exam to understand what it is I'm hoping and what I'm looking for you to include in your answers. The first thing though I do want to say is this. Um, And when it comes to typing your answer into the submission box in Blackboard, that's the only way that I can set this test up. However, if you've used Blackboard long enough, as I have, you know that occasionally there are glitches and you sometimes get kicked out of something that you're working on, or you lose access to the internet. Somebody, randomly or without thinking about it, unplugs the router in your house, or whatever happens. If there are any issues while you're taking the test, take a screenshot of the message that you get, the error message that you get, and send it to me and tell me what happened, so that you are sending me proof of what you're saying. Second thing, because there are sometimes glitches, I strongly recommend that you type your answers into a Word or Google document, or if you use Apple, whatever that application is, rather than typing directly into the submission box. That way, once your answer is ready to be submitted, you can simply copy and paste your document and then paste it into the submission box and move to the next one, do the same thing and hit submit. Because that way, if you're typing and you accidentally hit a key that erases a line that you just typed, or a paragraph that you just typed, you won't be pulling your hair out. Second thing I wanted to tell you, there are some students who will prepare a fairly detailed outline for each of the 5 questions. And then when they log in to take the test, they see which of the 2 questions they were assigned, they then work on the rest of the answer for those 2, fill in, the outline, and then they are able to copy and paste those answers into each submission box. Some students will go even further. They will write the whole answer out. They'll type it up, an answer that takes them time to do. And they do that for all 5, when they are ready to take the exam, log in, see which 2 questions they were assigned, and then they copy and paste those answers into the submission box and click on submit. Students who did that typically get an A, because they put all the extra time and effort into doing that. The students who do the other could be an A or B, depends on how well they flesh out that outline. Sometimes it's even lower, just depends on how much they flesh out that outline. So I'm telling you this because I know the students do this, and I am okay with it for this reason. Students who write out a whole answer ahead of time, they're doing extra work because they're preparing all 5 questions ahead of time. And so I'm okay with that. And students who make a very detailed outline, I'm okay with that too, because again, they're putting in that extra time. I hope that none of you try this other approach though, and I've known that some students do this because they admit it. Some students will do an eeny, meeny, miny, mo kind of thing and just go, well, I wonder, I'll say I'm going to get that one, that one, that one. They close their eyes and just point at 2 or 3, prepare those 2 or 3. And then maybe they get one of them, and then the other one is one that they didn't prepare at all. And so these people are students who usually do really well on one, and then the second one you can tell, okay, they didn't really prepare for this one. But having said all of this, you are all individuals. You are the student that you want to be, and so however you approach this first midterm is certainly your choice, and only you know how you're going to do that. Okay, so let's get started here. Question number 1 is from chapter 1. And this question, I ask you to explain why the authors of the text use, quote, a new approach to the study of urban sociology and to explain the three dimensions that they add. I also ask you to explain the ecological approach to the study of urban sociology and analyze how it differs from that of the author's approach. I then ask you to discuss the importance of culture in metropolitan life and why it is important to include it in addition to economic and political concerns. Discuss what is meant by the socio-spatial approach and explain its 5 main areas of emphasis. Okay, so this first chapter was pretty brief. And so it should be fairly easy for you to go back to this chapter and look for this information. And of course, as you write your answer to this, whether you're doing it at the time that you get assigned the questions, or you're doing an outline, or you're writing up the answers in full, you always want to make certain that if you make a statement, you're supporting that statement. So, for example, don't just tell me that the authors of the text use this new approach, and these are the 3 dimensions they added. Okay, well, that's a partial answer in my view, because you didn't explain what the new approach is and why they feel that it's important to the study of urban sociology. And you just listed or named the 3 dimensions, but didn't explain why or how they add these dimensions or why they included these dimensions. And so make certain that you are supporting your statements with some details, some examples. You're fleshing out that idea. And then number 2 is from chapter 2. If you read chapter 2 in depth, you recognize that George Simmel was very influential in his work in urban sociology was very influential. His work influenced quite a few thinkers. Some were even his students. And so you know that he went into great detail about this hypothetical Hans, and Simmel went through the daily life of Hans from when he got up in the morning until he went to work, and then after work, and what his life was outside of work. And so when you discuss his work and his observations about this hypothetical Hans, you want to include that detail of the various parts of Hans's day and how Simmel described how Hans's day would have been. And then Lewis Worth, excuse me, Lewis Worth, he wrote a seminal essay entitled Urbanisms as a Way of Life. And here I point out the pages to you. And there's a good discussion about that essay and why it appeared to be so groundbreaking. However, of course, there's a discussion as well in the chapter about some of the shortcomings of his core assertions, and why people have now become, or urban sociologists today, are less enamored or believe his work has less merit. And there's page number for you to go back as a reference. Explain Robert Park's human ecology model and Burgess's model of urban growth. These are 2 different models, 2 different ways of thinking about urban growth. And again, I point out the pages to you. So again, go back, review what these 2 different models are about so that you can explain them again, what are the major ideas of these 2 different thinkers. And then I ask you, which theory do you think best explains what you see in your community and why? Okay, and again, don't just say, well, I think Burgess's model explains my community best. Okay, great. Why? Chapter 3, I ask you to explain the 4 areas of Lefebvre's work and to discuss why his work is important to the study of urban sociology. And again, I gave you pages to go back to and review his work and the 4 areas. Discuss the relationship between socio-spatial inequality and racism, and provide at least 2 examples of this connection, and again, give you some pages to reference. Analyze how the socio-spatial approach views the global economy compared to the other perspectives outlined in the text. Again, some pages for reference. Chapter 4, discuss how these three factors played a role in the industrial expansion period. Number 1, land development technology. Number 2, manufacturing. And number 3, population churning and immigration. And again, pages to refer back to. Finally, explain how changes in functional differentiation and demographic differentiation played a role in the rise of the metropolis. Again, some pages to reference. So again, don't just list the three factors and make, don't just say land development technology meant this, manufacturing meant this, population churning immigration meant this. Give some examples, flesh it out. How is that playing a role in the industrial expansion? And then last, chapter 5 is question upon which question number 5 is based. Analyze how government programs and the federal housing stimulus contributed to the growth of suburbanization. And there's good discussion there about government programs and federal housing stimulus. Discuss how racism shaped suburbanization. Be sure to explain the role of racial covenants and redlining as discussed in the video in the module. There's a video in the module in which a gentleman who does work around the area of how prior government policies have affected the wealth today of African Americans, primarily African Americans, but in general, people of color. And the speaker discusses racial covenants in great detail as well as redlining to some degree. So you want to also think about, watch that video and think about how those racial covenants and the redlining also played a role in shaping the suburban landscape. Why do we see suburbs, that often in many parts of the country are primarily white, and closer to the cities we see more people of color. And then finally explain how deindustrialization and globalization affected suburbs. Okay, so I gave you a page there to reference. I apologize. Asthma has been bothering me, and so my throat's a little sore from all the coughing. So there you go, and prepare as you will.